In a world where content is limitless, two dudes forge an unbreakable bond to become a part of something larger than themselves by creating a podcast unlike nothing the world has ever heard. Time is running out, and all hope will soon be lost. Their content could hold the key to fight against the darkness. No matter how many podcasts the people have listened to, they haven't heard us. Not us united.
Are we all drinking wine?
I am.
Okay, I'm drinking Stella, but
Yeah,
I couldn't drink blood after the show.
Tyler,
I'm drinking IPAs. Yeah, I didn't want to get too thematic with starting to sip red wine,
Oh.
and I think I'd
Yeah.
really just go whole
Your
hog.
boy's ready.
Jesus.
Just go whole hog.
Yeah.
Your boy is about to turn to a vampire. Just you wait.
All right, well, that was perfect intro to our podcast episode. What episode is this, Michael? Is this episode?
15. I'm
Eight?
gonna say it's probably wrong. 18.
I think we're somewhere between 15 and 18.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
We're somewhere between 1 and 50,
I agree.
at least.
Good. Exactly. We are going to be discussing the new Netflix series, Midnight Mass. It's a one-off from Mike Flanagan. If you're familiar with like The Haunting of Hill House or The Haunting of Bly Manor, did some other stuff like the new movie Doctor Sleep, which was the sequel
Mhm.
to The Shining, and did some other things. Really into the horror genre. Really likes his horror genre. Anyway, but we're joined with a couple guests this week, so thanks for being here. My sister Kenzie, what up? Okay, lovely smile. Okay, perfect. And then my cousin Tyler, thanks for being here.
Yes. Hello. Very excited to be on.
Yes, this is going to be awesome.
Happy to have y'all.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Oh, yes, and honorary pup award goes to Cooper as always. I feel like he always follows you when you're on a podcast, correct?
yeah, so lame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get advice.
So we'll go ahead and jump in. This series was 7 episodes long, but we're gonna try to do a spoiler-free review for you guys for any of those that haven't seen it yet. We wanted to give you just kind of our thoughts, but if you're looking for kind of the official synopsis without really spoiling too much, it's about this small town, kind of an island town, that's kind of secluded, and the only way to get there is like by ferries and whatnot. But there's this overly charismatic priest that comes into town for their small congregation at a local church, and things start miraculously happening, and it starts to draw attention, and maybe it's not all that good in this spooky town. So but no, that's very vague,
Very
but
close.
that's about all we can say without spoiling too much. But
That's more than I even knew. I knew nothing besides the title and that it was on
Yes.
Netflix.
Same here. I had
Yeah.
nothing to.
Sure, yeah. When I first heard Midnight Mass, I mean, we grew up Catholic, and so all I could think about was like, oh, the night before Christmas, this will be a lovely show.
Oh, Nick.
I had this saved to my Netflix watch list. I was sitting at lunch looking for a new show to watch, and the preview came on the day it came out, and I was like, that is 100% Dr. Sam from New Girl, and he was one of my favorite characters. Me and Megan
Oh,
are going to
right.
watch this together. And then that weekend, Nick, I saw you in person. You're like, so first things first, there's no way you're going to be able to make it through this. And second, this is definitely not a Megan show, and it's also not Dr. Sam.
It's
So
also not just
my expectations were shattered. I took it off my
Everything
recommended list, and then you reached out and were like, "Hey, if you can survive watching, all 7 episodes, maybe we'll have you on." And
Yeah.
God forbid I did it, Nick.
Yeah, I used some reverse psychology. I knew you would say yes if I said that you couldn't make it through. And
Just
so
like a child. Yep.
played you
Pushing
like a
through.
field. I love it. So anyway, let's talk just overall. What do you guys think of the show? Did it meet your expectations? If you had none, or if they were shattered, like what was good about it, or whatever. But Michael, you're the freshest. What were your thoughts on it?
Yes, I literally finished this show last night.
Okay.
Watched it in about 3 or 4 days. I have mixed emotions for most of the season, and then I think it ended very well for me. Mixed emotions, as in like, oh, this is really good, but is it bad? like there's all these things happening. It's like there's like this undertone of like, oh, what's really happening? Um, and I think I came off the show really loving it, like genuinely thinking it's a really good show, and I think it has a lot of great talking points, which we'll get into. And I think maybe it's from the thing of I knew absolutely nothing about it, or it comes from I think Mike Flanagan does a really good job of horror, and it's not like I think it's the kind of horror I like, where it's not like really heavy horror. It's kind of like mental, like mental horror, not more like, even though there is physical
It's not
bloody
all
horror.
jump scares.
It's not, yeah, it's not jump scares. It's more like I think there's like 2 jump scares in this entire show. Um, but I think the way he does it, and like it's really a drama first before it's a horror. So um, care about the characters and everything. So I really really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good use of eyeballs for
Mm.
horror,
Oh,
like iconic.
oh, those eyeballs.
Tyler, what were your initial thoughts?
So, again, super hyped, gonna watch it on my own without knowing anything about it. Nick tells me totally don't watch it, so it's off my radar again. Then it's back on the radar. So just a roller coaster leading up to this show.
Yeah.
So first, very, very glad that I watched it in the upstairs of my house during the day. There is a perfect glare on my television so that most jump scares I couldn't see.
Mm.
So
attaboy.
anybody that's a little bit weak but wants to watch the show, highly recommend like you.
I love it.
But show overall, and I don't watch it. I'm not a huge movie buff yet,
hmm
but it's rare that I watch a show that makes you feel things the way this show made you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's because our family going into it, all of us practiced Catholicism or
hmm
that type of childhood. It was relatable. I knew what I was getting into with the whole mass portion of it, and so I was familiar with all of that. And I don't know. I don't know if this is jumping the gun at all, but if you just took clips of just his speaking portions at mass, like the way that they did mass was so good and so like it just made you feel. I don't know. I don't know how else to. It just the show made me feel things, Nick. It really did.
Yeah.
It struck me to the core. And I
They
would say
okay.
even looking at this in hindsight, I felt more good things during this show than I did bad things, and that
Mhm.
surprises
Yeah.
me at the tail end of this.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Uh,
They did I think they did the research and they weren't just trying to I think my initial thought going into the show was, "Oh, here's Netflix just about to smear the crap out of church."
Yeah.
Just like this is going to just they're just going to punch below the belt over and over and over again. There's going to be no way for anyone to defend this show, right? And in the end, it felt like, no, we're just going to be authentic. Like here's what real church in this small Catholic church would probably look like, and here's probably the things they would preach about. And you're just like, oh wait, they like did the research. They're not just like blatantly just doing that. And so I agree. I actually left this feeling almost more hopeful
Mhm.
in those types of things than not. And so I totally agree with you. Kins, bring us the heat.
oh gosh. Dang, you guys are like good with the words. I'm like not good with words.
Speak from the heart. You're like,
I-
how
We're
does it
so
feel?
poetic.
Show's like dope, man.
Yeah, it shows like
Shows like
lit fam.
sick fire, straight busting
Busted.
for real.
oh my god. Well, like you guys, like yeah, we grew up in like old school, like Italian Catholic kind of vibe, which always freaked me out. Honestly, like growing up, I'm just like, this is not my thing, not my scene, but whatever. And I'd like go to CCD, like the Wednesday church thing, and then the next day those girls wouldn't play with me on the playground. I was like, this is like bullshit, like. I don't know. So I never got the whole Catholic thing. No offense, Tyler and Aunt Jill, God bless you, but so There's something that scares me so much though when it's like you're hearing like Catholic like hymns, like music playing, or like they're reciting like verses from the Bible while doing something totally fucking sadistic and evil. That scares me
Sure.
so bad because it's like
Mhm.
they're doing the worst thing in the name of something good. That terrifies me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Mhm.
like what the whole show is, and that freaks my shit out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially like I mean, I think it's important today. I mean, I think a lot of people do that, not to this well, I mean, I don't know. Like I kind of
Sure.
watch it and I'm like, in doses, this shit happens every day. Like,
Mm.
they're like I can be an asshole, and as long as I'm reciting the Bible while I'm doing it, I'm holy. And it's like,
Mm.
actually, Joe Colley's is better than all you bitches. Like this, no, no.
Yeah.
So it really got under my skin, but like in a good way. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 out
Sh-
of 10.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the show, I think I had similar fears of what Nick said about like, okay, here's the anti-Catholic, here's the anti-Christian, whatever.
Mhm.
But I feel like not only do they give that voice, they give voice to like literally multiple viewpoints, and
Mhm.
like everyone feels like an in-depth character, and everyone has like their monologues in this show are so good, and everyone has their
Mhm.
point and be like, what do you think happens? And like, oh, they're like, hey, here's like a 5-minute monologue of this actor crushing their lines and giving a viewpoint that like is a fully fleshed out person, and it makes it feel like, hey, this isn't
Yeah.
just like a straw man where it's like, hey, this is what people believe, and then they tear it down. It's like, hey, this is what someone could actually believe and why they could believe that, both like on multiple viewpoints and even like religions in the show. So it
Mhm.
Yeah.
feels like a fleshed out world and not just like some, it feels real. It doesn't feel like they made it up and like, oh, this could never happen, besides some of the things that happen, but like the world
Right.
itself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and I think too, you can't really hang your hat on any of these characters being a perfect person,
Mhm.
which I think was the point of that ends up being the point of the show is no one person is perfect, but together they can experience this phenomenon, and it can lead them all to hope and find faith, not because of each of their own performances that got them there, but rather just choosing good in spite of all the evil that's around
Mhm.
them and stuff.
Right.
So I just think, yeah, it does a really good job of you can't really root. There's no like hero of the show, but um but I think that's the point. If there was, it kind of wouldn't be realistic. There is no
Mhm.
one person, except for in the church it would be Jesus, and so since he's not in this show, spoiler alert, uh, it's just everyone else so that you're dealing with, and they're all flawed in their own way. But I
Right.
think that's what
Mhm.
makes them so relatable, like you said.
Yeah.
So, um, okay, so Kinsey, is it truly 10 out of 10 for you, or was that just kind of a? I mean, is this literally perfection?
I think it is. I mean, when I sit and think about what I would change about it, it's like I don't know. I don't think I would change anything. The most annoying
Mm.
thing was Bev. I think we can all agree.
Oh, we'll get to Bev.
But
Bev
Mamma
it's
is
mia.
not. The
she's
sun
so
will not go down on Bev yet.
she really because it's like she gets under your skin so bad. Like just the way that we watched it chapter 1 this weekend too. And like the main bully, I forget his name, but the main bully in that movie, I'm like, oh my god, that guy makes me so fucking mad because he's just full of anger. He's so fucking evil, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? He really did a great job. And it's like characters like there's only like a
Mhm.
handful that you're. Oh, I really fucking hate that person, even though I know they're playing a role. Bev, she tops the charts.
Oh yeah,
She's
she
just,
did wonderfully awful
yeah,
in her
She's
performance.
she's like the Draco of this show. Like
Yeah.
she's so perfect to hate her the whole
yes,
way
Yeah.
through, but
you
at the
love,
end of the day, you have to look back on that character, and she filled such a role in this show for me liking
Yeah.
it that I can't
Yeah.
hate her for her role.
yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
No, yeah, she lights a fire under your ass, and it's like, you know, at least one person that's like in a small dose, kind of like Bev. You just know that bitch that she's
Sure.
portraying. Uh, I just, I swear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like shows that make me angry.
Yeah. It's good. All right. Well, we got one 10 out of 10.
Ooh.
Anybody else want to score it after that?
Yeah, I can leave. I can leave your guys two as the last two votes here. I thought about this for quite a while, actually. I think I'm going to give the show an 8.5.
Mhm.
And I do so for a couple of reasons. One, we'll talk about later as a talking point for what we'd change. Like if at the end of a show, I can sit down and type out a few things for what I would change. I don't think it's a valid 10 out of 10. So I had to kind of weight that a little bit. The other, just when you're scoring it against other shows in your personal,
Sure.
arsenal of shows that would be a 10, like I don't think this is. We could even just say Netflix originals. Like I don't think this is on the level of a Queen's Gambit. It's
Oh.
it's a great show, but if Queen Gambit sets the standard, and then there's shows like Ozark and stuff like that that are also really high up there, I would put this in that realm. I just don't
Yeah.
think it's a 10.
Okay.
So I'll give it a
Fair enough.
solid. I'll give it a solid 8.5. That would be like
That's
a
good.
B,
It's really high.
plus in school.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nothing wrong with it.
And I feel real good about that.
Good. I'm
That's
glad.
still like a really high score. So it's like,
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
I that would be killing it.
yeah.
I mean, Michael and I have regularly given out 6s as like a good thing. I
Mhm.
mean that's still like I liked 60% of what that movie had to offer, that TV show had to offer, and that's still like a compliment. I think in school terms it might seem like, oh, a D, that sucks, but it's like it's still
Yeah.
up there. So
No, we've regularly given out 6s, and 8.5 is probably like higher than a lot of the scores we've given this year. I
mhm.
think I just to jump into my score, I think this is the one of the better things I've seen in in cinema TV shows in this year for sure. Um,
Nice.
I personally would rank it much higher than Queen's Gambit. Not a huge fan of the show, but that's not about this.
Oh
All right,
my
Nick.
god.
Nick, I'll see you later.
I'm walking.
Sorry, don't want to step on any toes. But
Hey, you could be me and not have seen Queen's Gambit, and that's a whole nother topic. So
Well, I think is totally different in each of our brains. Like,
yeah, it's
you know,
true. I mean, they're all
yeah.
yeah. I would score it about a 9. I think this
Yep.
show is so gripping and so like it makes you feel so many things and it's very thought provoking. It's not just like, oh, that was a good show and I will never watch it again. Like I could see myself like returning to this and
Mhm.
like it made me feel and like kind of grimy and also kind of like, oh, is this like what is this like? This how does this make me really feel about like like my own faith? It's like, oh, is this like what is there was a challenge in that of like, oh, this is something that um would be interesting to just think about, and
Mm.
so I found it
Yeah.
just great. I really enjoyed it, just
Yeah.
as dark but also hopeful, but also just a character piece of all these people, and I loved it. So
Sick. Um. Okay, this puts some pressure on me because I'm
Mm.
a people pleaser, and so I should have actually gone first instead of last because I like take all of your scores and go, oh, I don't want to upset anyone. It's literally my
give it a
score.
6. Give it a 6, Nick.
um. No, the thing I'll say is, I think I was telling you this, Michael, but I was like, this did more for me to like strengthen even just like faith conversations or things like that, like in my head, than like a movie that's straight up about like God.
Hmm.
Like a pro-Christian movie has never filled my cup like Midnight Mass has, which
Yeah.
is odd because if I were to tell people like, hey, you should watch this like really dark horror movie, like over the course of 7 episodes, and it's gonna fill your cup. Like I think it's just the combination of like the fantasy stuff that I really like, of the supernatural and monsters and those types of things, but also this like really real tangible faith thing. And so um it's a it's hard because we're talking about Mike Flanagan, and so I really loved Haunting of Hill House. It's like one of my favorite shows of all time. But I think that this one just like hit me harder, and so I think I'm right up there. If I were just going straight off of the plot and how well it told itself, I think I'd probably say it's like in that 10 category, but there are enough like
Sheesh.
enough nitpicking things
Nick Picky.
that I'm gonna talk about at the end that I think they could have fleshed out maybe over like one more episode, that it just knocks it down about a point.
Hmm.
So I'm like
Okay.
right at a 9 as well. So I think I really enjoyed the plot and like the story it was trying to tell, and the way that they showed respect to both sides and like actually shared everybody's point of view instead of just being kind of like an anti one thing. That
Mhm.
really like helped this story breathe, and I think it benefited from it. But it's definitely flawed, I think. So there's definitely a few little nitpicky things, like I said. So I'll give it a 9 as well.
Does that make
So,
me officially the harshest critic on this show?
yeah, at an
Of this 4,
8.5.
yeah.
So I think that's
Jesus
fine.
Christ. I was trying to temper my expectations, come in and be like, I'm not going to just gas this show up.
Yeah, it's hard too because like we're picking what we want to talk about, and so typically our scores will naturally be higher than we're just reviewing everything.
Yeah, if you watch some kind of random show. Like, you've been
And so
pretty
like
hyped on the show for a while, Nick, just like wanting to
yeah,
watch it.
and so I think like me requesting to get like other people involved, like I was really excited to have this conversation, and so I think that kind of made me a little biased towards like my score's obviously going to be a little higher. So,
Awesome.
but yeah, no, I think you totally have a fair point though, Ty, and I want to watch Queen's Gambit too because I've heard only good things, except for Michael. So I don't know if Michael's the
Listen,
outlier
chess
there
is a
or
hard
what.
game. It's a hard
It
game.
is.
I know
Wrap your head
chess.
around-
I
You do love a good
playing
game of
If
chess.
it's called Queen's Checkers, maybe you would have gave it a 10 out of 10.
That's fair. He's got you there. Checkmate.
Hey,
Okay, well there you go. There's our scores. For anyone that's just wanting to now, okay, got a dark churchy show that seems to be pretty well liked by the four of us. So they're just spoiler-free review of Midnight Mass. And so that's your warning. Now we're going to get into kind of some nitty-gritty stuff, things we like, things we didn't like, and more like episode-specific type things. So if you don't want to have those spoiled, stop listening now. All right. So with that said, let's talk more positive first before we get to Bev. And let's go with our favorite character. Perhaps maybe your favorite character is Bev, but I'm curious to hear what your guys' favorite characters are. Kens, why don't we start with you?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I don't know. That's hard because at first my choice was Joe Colley's, just because I mean, I don't know how you guys like your centers, but I like mine pretty up front and like in with right away. He's like very, angsty and like, you know what, you guys already think I'm a piece of shit, so I'm just gonna be a piece of shit. And I like that honesty.
Sure.
But I mean, I do love to what's the doctor's name? Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
I like her because I think she's smart, and she like towards the end is like crucial and like, okay, we're gonna not only do we need to figure out what the hell's going on, we need to fucking fight this. So I think she's pretty too. But Joe's just like that. Oh man, Joe deserved better,
that was a hard death too. It's gonna be
It
like, oh, you're just getting better, and like,
and it was like in the end he was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be on the right path. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna be, and he was just so like raw and just like himself, and rip Joe.
Sure. That's fair. Ty, do you have any opinions on your favorite character?
Yeah, I have a couple that I liked quite a bit.
Hell yeah.
So with the way Kenzie did hers, is it fine to like foreshadow into their character arc through the end of the show at this point?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're all
okay.
in. Yep.
Okay, so I really, really liked that Aaron kind of goes from this like ancillary character you think she's just going to be tied to Riley's past to ending up being the show's main protagonist. Like, I liked that switched it up. It kept me interested in like episodes 3 and 4 because she really started to take off. And I think the actress that played her, the way that she did, Aaron's monologues when they're talking about, I have it later on in my sheet that I've written down of favorite things in the show, but the way that she crushed her monologues, just she was incredible. I also really, really liked, is it Lisa or Lisa?
Oh,
Yeah.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Kinsey, when we were sending out these questions, said like maybe who was like the most morally good throughout the full show. Like I feel like at the end of the day, you watch this full show, like she was the one person who had like the purest of intentions the whole way through. And I
Yeah.
love, like you said, there was no one you were rooting for in the show. Like I kind of the whole time was just like, please don't make Lisa bad. Like just
Yeah,
let
there
my
you go.
girl go unscathed. Let me just end this horrible, scary show with one little like good thing
Yeah.
that comes out of it. So loved her. I loved her the whole way through. I thought the forgiveness thing was with Joe was great.
That was awesome.
I thought it all was awesome. I loved too at the end again. I hate talking about the end right now, I guess at the beginning, but I love that when she loses feeling in her legs at the end that she's
Yeah.
like pumped about it. Like
Yeah.
almost any other character
Wild.
would be like, son of a bitch, dude. I
Like,
can't feel
Yep.
my legs again. And she's like, ha, can't feel my knees.
Mm,
Guess that
yeah.
means okay. So I
Yeah.
loved that.
yeah.
And then the last character that I really, really liked, I loved the sheriff.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
the sheriff was cast great. I thought his character was great. I loved that the whole way through he wanted his son to just experience whatever he could that would benefit his son. I also just thought he was a good one the full way through. And they never tainted his character either. He was just good throughout the whole thing.
It's true. No, great. Yeah. I agree with all those. I mean, I don't know if you can say one and be like, oh yeah, never mind, that was actually a shitty character. But like I feel like
Sorry if I took three. I was writing down my
No,
favorite
you're fine.
characters, and I'm like, Aaron rocked. And then I went to number 3, and I was like, I need to go back up to number 2 on my Word document and also write Lisa because she rocked.
right. Yeah.
So it was
No,
tough.
I'd rather have all of them be our favorite and get a chance to talk about them than to leave someone
totally.
undone. So what do you got, Michael?
Important. And like,
Um,
if one's gone, like the show would suck. Like, we can't
It's
lose
true,
anyone.
yeah. Everyone felt important. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's what made it so good is like, I mean, Nick, you said you weren't rooting for it. I was rooting for everybody except for Ben.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. I guess what I should clarify when I say that is that like none of them were like going to be the only savior. Like they
Yeah.
were all it had to
Everyone,
be a group effort or you couldn't do it,
and that's the thing is like everyone, it was unexpected. Anyone could be like
Yeah.
expendable really. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and like even like I totally agree with the sheriff. He was a really interesting character, and I think having him as a Muslim was really interesting too, and him being so pathetic in his faith,
Mm-hmm.
and him having that dynamic with his son,
Yeah.
and then ultimately in the end, the son burns down the building. Huh, mint. That was dope. It was good, and so like I liked him. I liked his character. Um, I did like Riley mostly because of my boy Matt Saracen from Friday Night Lights. He was the main character there, so I think that kind of carried over from like I liked him there.
I love it.
But he was interesting because he was the person that you would think be the main thread, like Tyler, you were saying. Um, but it changed and it became Aaron, which was really interesting. Where like you think you got like, oh, the guy like you start at the beginning and he's like this, like recovering from like this death and from alcoholism. Like, oh, he's gonna be like the turnaround point that we're gonna say like point to and be like, oh, he had the best like redemptive arc. But no, there's so much more to it, and so I think it was really
Mm-hmm.
interesting that like what he chose to do and like how that arc led. And then I mean, I gotta say it, I like Monsame Pruitt. I like him a
Oh,
You
lot.
got to
same.
drop it. Drop the mic. Let's do it.
Like he's an amazing character. I mean, just like his I don't even do we know where he's from? Like
I
this
think it's New Girl.
actor?
No.
He's not.
Wait, what?
No.
Maybe. But
Please. Oh my god.
he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And just like yeah, like Tyler, you're always saying like his speeches are like, dang, this is like good. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
his homilies, like I would go to that church to listen to him speak. The way that he delivered all of those throughout the show
Yeah.
made you
Yeah.
just feel something.
yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dang, it's like like, and having that be like, oh, then he's like a vampire, like this conflicting thing about like, man, he's really good, but also he's this evil thing. It's like this, like that's where like a lot of like my friction was like, oh, like he's this and that, and it's like it was so hard to like reconcile with that. But he is such a great character, and his turn at the end of like this, like he was just like, this wasn't right, this wasn't the way. Like I became God. Like I was to myself, like I became my own God. And he's like, that wasn't the point. Like he says the line of something like, what was it? It's something like I can't even remember, but like he basically says like in a church, that's like the leader is supposed to be God and he wasn't the leader. And like
Yeah.
he like comes to that point, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, him and Bev have that little back and forth
Yeah,
where
that little
she's like,
fight.
we, we're the sheep, and and he's like, no, we're the wolves. Like and it's
And the
like,
eyes, dude, the eyes are walking up the hill.
yeah, dude, that was insane.
We loved that part, and like when I got to the finale too, Nick would text me. He's like, "Please wait for me. Watch it with me." And I'm like, "No, you're
Yeah,
not for me." But then he got home, and I was like, "Okay, you can watch it with me." And like when we first started, I was like, "John better fucking redeem himself, because why am I still rooting for John? Like I know he gotta hit this point where he's like, dude, we fucked up." And then like right away he was like, "Yeah, we did this all fucking wrong," and it was
yeah,
so cool. I know we can get into this later, but like it was so cool because when he finally admits like we did this wrong, like you're not supposed to just follow one man, like I'm not supposed to embody God. And Bev's like, you know what, you're right, we're not supposed to follow you. And it's like, wow, and how cool you
Yeah.
little bit
She was
yeah.
so quick to
Bev
be
just
like,
flips on a coin.
you
yeah.
Flips on a
say,
coin.
oh, I hate for you guys.
Oh, Bev, we're coming for you.
Oh,
Don't you
well,
worry,
real
lady.
quick, Nikki K, give us your fave.
Yeah, so this will be one of my standout scenes for sure, but Annie Flynn um, is probably like the character you like kind of sleep on throughout you're like, oh, okay, I get you, and then she just has one of the best scenes in the whole show in the finale. I think her line to Bev is for me like just the absolute like, this is it, like this is
The point.
gonna change what you're gonna see from now on in the finale. And I'll get more into that for the standout scene, but even her little monologue to Bev was insane at the end, so that makes her a top tier character for me. Um, and then Monsignor Pruitt, my boy, holla. Uh, I don't
Shouty.
need to. Um, who else was? I also think the sheriff as well. There's another scene that I'll talk about eventually too, but when the school is enforcing like the Bible needs to be read, but nothing else, and he does it in such a loving way of just like, I have no problem. Let's just have all books be available.
Yeah.
And just like a beautiful way to show like you can believe what you want to believe as long as you're telling other people not, like, you know what I mean? Like there's kind of this like he was more accepting than arguably the religion that should be the most accepting. And so it was just kind of like, I just thought that was a really good challenge and good scene from him. And so I think those are my top three characters. Annie she just had a finale of a lifetime, and so she just got like, because like all the other characters were better, and then she's like, Bev, I need to talk to you, and I'm like, holla, let's get it. Like she pops off in the finale. It's insane. I love it.
Oh man, yeah, she killed it.
So let's go ahead, and then like that's a natural transition, I think, for like standout scenes. Like, we've kind of already hinted at a few, but what were those, like the ones that popped for each of you? Ty, did you have a few that were kind of like your favorite?
Yeah, I think a couple of them are going to get probably touched on by the rest of the group, so I'll go with just the ones that maybe only I'll pick.
Okay.
I guess my first favorite scene in the show is I love in episode 3, Monsignor Pruitt doing his reconciliation or whatever, and just giving us the full rundown to let us know, like, what's actually happening?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because like up until this point, like I texted Nick after the first episode, and I'm like, Monsignor Pruitt's been sucking on some cats, and that's why he's young now. I think some shit's going on. And Nick's like, that is a hot take. And then it kind of started to flesh itself out. But you still didn't really figure anything out until he just starts laying it all out there.
Yeah.
So I loved that episode. I loved that it laid it all out there for you. This is what you're getting.
Mm.
This is what's going on. Now we can really just see what happens in the show. So I loved that. And then my favorite scene, and I think it's just because like if you're gonna have talking points after a show, the debate between Riley and Aaron about what happens when you die.
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
then it also, I guess, gets tied to when she does finally die in episode 7. But
Yeah.
I think the 3 takes on what happens when you die that those two characters lay out, I think are the perfect 3 that if a person was sitting down and thinking about it, like that's where your head goes. There's I'm kind of a piece of shit and I don't serve a purpose. So when I die, nothing really happens except my body decomposes and I become one with the earth. Then there's that kind of religious angle of this is what I hope happens because I need it to happen. When Erin's talking about, losing her baby and she's going to go to God and be with my family because that's what I need to happen. And then her scene at the end is my favorite, where she's talking about how I'll maybe talk about it at the end. I have it pulled up because I think that the quotes that she has in that monologue is so great, but just talking about how she's more than just her body and she's being returned back to this pool of energy. And it was so cool how they talked about death in that scene. I thought that was moving. That made me feel things that other shows aren't going to make you feel. And it's like, that's one of the reasons I would recommend the show to people is it's really a thought-provoking scene.
For sure.
Nice.
Yeah, this feels like it's almost a show that's begging to be studied. It's weird.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. Like, this is definitely a show that's like, you could probably have like a class on or like some film studies. Like, hey, watch this show and like discuss religion, discuss theology, discuss like character motivations, discuss all these things and life and death and everything. There's so much to this show.
Yeah, and the thought that went into it was so well fleshed out. Yeah, just nothing but good things to say about that part.
Agreed. All right, Kens, you got any big standout scenes that you want to?
Yeah, it's hard to follow Ty. He's like,
He did his homework. Gotta
I
respect
can't
him.
really.
I have a Word document up, okay? This doesn't happen
love
for
it.
everybody.
I knew
I
you
love
would
it.
blow. I knew you would.
He's got spreadsheets on spreadsheets.
I have Tableau open. I have a graph.
I just not half-assed. No, I think probably one of mine is I know Nick's favorite, so I'm gonna save that one for him. It's the one with Annie at the end. She kills it. But my favorite is probably when Riley's just been bitten and he's talking like Monsignor Pruitt is like, okay, let me just talk to you. I'll tell you the whole truth. Let's go over this, whatever. And he basically says, you killed someone by accident and you feel endlessly guilty about it. I killed Joe Collies and sucked all the blood out of his body and I don't feel guilty at all. Like, what does that make you feel? And I like called it too. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to say jealous. And at first he's like disgusted, like that's revolting, obviously. But he's like, but what does it really make you feel? And he said jealous. And it's like, oh my God.
Whoa.
I thought that was awesome.
That was a goose pimple. That was a goose pimple moment.
I mean, obviously you think, Monsignor Pruitt is like the bad guy in that situation, but it's like, then it makes you think about guilt. It's like, what's the point of guilt, I guess? How long do you feel it? What good does it even do? And like, right, it's not doing Riley any good to keep carrying his guilt. So he's like, oh my God. I thought that was just like mind blowing the way that they like set that up. I was like, oh, that was like an awesome fucking line. That was so good.
Yeah, that was insane.
Good choice too, because I didn't write that down or think about that, and I'm glad somebody brought it up because that was so good.
I loved that, and I loved the one that you said too, because it was like the 3 versions of dying or whatever. It's like the really like realistic, like just bodily view of it. Like, well, my body shuts down, and then the worms start eating me and whatever. And then it's like, oh, well, I go to bright shiny heaven, and it's amazing. And then in the end, it's like, okay, here's what actually happens because I'm dying, and I'll walk you through it. And it's kind of like that night. Well, Hopefully it's both, and you just don't fucking know. Like, I think a lot of like people these talk about those things, the unknown, I guess, like they know for sure, and those people scare me a lot. Like you said, a little bit, he was like, if someone confidently says, "This is what happens when you die," like run. Like, no, like, we don't. We like to think we have different views, but it's like we don't actually know until it's happening. And she did that, like, oh, now that it's happening, let me walk you through it while it's going on. I thought that was cool too. So I agree with you.
Sure. No, I mean anybody who has faith in anything, probably needs to also understand that in order to have faith, there probably is some unknowns, and you're still choosing to believe in that,
Yeah.
not knowing 100% of everything. Like that. That's the definition of faith, right? So, no, I agree with you. What were you gonna say, Michael?
Oh, nothing.
Well, you can do a standout scene if you'd like.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't think too much about it. I think the whole show itself was just like it was so gripping. I was like, I liked it all, but
I really liked when the dog got poisoned.
Yeah, I really
Oh,
Stop it, Nick. That's on my list of shit that you should never ever do on television.
I just thought it was all artistic.
Yeah, I thought it was. I loved all of it. I think standout wise, it hit the fan when they went. Monsignor Pruitt went into the cave and met the vampire for the first time. That was like where the moment was like, "Ooh, this is spooky. This is feeling
Scary.
something." So like that was like, "Oh, this is like," along with the lines of like that one episode where like he's like Tyler said, you're like really finding things out. That was where I was like, "Oh, this is spooky and it's happening." And it's like I like that a lot. I mean, I like Monsignor Pruitt's redemption at the end where he was like, "Bev, you suck." I like whenever someone says, "Bev, you suck," but not in the vampire way.
Amen.
And but like I mean, no one's bringing it up, but at the end of episode 6, where they're all becoming vampires, whoo,
Well,
So
that was pretty
is
crazy.
the scene you're talking about where they're like all like doing the cult drinking of the?
yes, where they're
Yeah.
drinking the poison.
That was a powerful moment for sure.
I was shook, and I made the mistake of watching it.
Or
And Nick told me otherwise to not do this, to block out 2 hours. He's like, you should block out 2 hours and watch 6 and 7. I'm like, you know what? I got some time after work, and then I'm gonna go like meet with a friend and get some dinner. So I was like, I'll finish up episode 6 and then watch 7 after. That was the biggest mistake I could have ever made.
Yeah.
I like
Dude.
after 6, I was like shaking. I was like, this, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And then I like sit down at dinner. I'm like, dude, I don't know what's going on, man.
Yeah.
So I actually did the exact same mistake. I was chewing through the show during my lunch breaks, and I got 50 minutes into episode 6 and had to turn it off. So like they're all there for Easter Mass, and I'm like, yeah, like Monsignor Pruitt's kind of talking a little crazy, but I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. Let's just pick it up tomorrow. And I told Nick I stopped like 10 minutes left of episode 6. He's like, that's an interesting choice. And then
Yeah.
I literally turn it back on the next day, and those 10 minutes just shake me to the ground. I'm like, well, this is the worst.
It is.
Oh man.
I don't know if a show has affected me with 10 minutes like that in a long time. Or it's just
It
like
was the Red
so
Wedding.
shocking.
It was the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you know what? You're totally right. It was the Red Wedding. Like how shocking it was to be like, I didn't like all these characters that you know and you care about are like, and then there's like conflict and like, oh, are these people like dying? Are they living?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? Like, there's so much going on. Yeah, Red Wedding.
Well, what did it for me was like, and our new pastors in town. It's an 8-foot fucking vampire
Oh, that was.
in robes. I'm just like,
When he shows up at the end of like the back of the aisle, I'm like, cool. I have lost all the poop in my body.
everyone just like looks at each other, just like, what did we sign up for? And you're just like, what do you do? And then Bev's like locking the doors. And you're
I
just
thought I thought that was a cool part of the scene too, because like you bring him in, I don't know the right name for it. So they brought him in wearing a shiffer robe or whatever. And he just is this giant priest, and you're like, damn, that is a cool way to bring him into this episode.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good. Oh,
and then his wings pop out, and you're just like, oh.
When he has his hands
okay.
out like "Embrace me, my children," and it's like, oh, he's gonna eat you.
he's gonna eat you.
Like, you don't have to drink this liquid. He's still gonna eat you.
Yeah, there's no way. I think just like Ed just like looks over at Annie like, what the did we just do? Like, yikes. Oh goodness, yeah, you're right. That's whew. Yeah, Nick out of 10 scene.
Well, speaking of Nick out of
Ooh.
10 scene, pop off.
Oh, whew. Okay. Yeah, Tyler's scream. I can audibly hear you watching him in the robes for the first time.
Well, no, it's just like when we do anything else, Nick. You're not even there, and it happens, and I'm like, Nick.
Yeah, and then I wake up in the middle of the night just like sweating like
You're in a
oh.
cold sweat because I'm screaming your name 30 miles away.
I heard something.
Tyler screaming.
You finally
I
saw
can
it.
feel it.
Kate.
My
Keep
thigh
it
has a
flat.
bruise on it.
Yep.
I'm just like, what's going on?
Nick,
He
Heard his name.
yeah, so I'll go with like I'll lead up to Annie's thing, but I would say Lisa's reconciliation with Joe was insane, where it's very accurate of one of like something has to give in order for us to move on. You need to be forgiven, and I'm still going to have a really hard time being around you, but I'm still able to forgive. I think was beautiful because I think that's accurate. Forgiveness will always cost someone something because it means one person has to go. Even though you literally hurt me, I'm going to take all of it and still give you the freedom. And so I just think she did a perfect job of, you know, granted, I mean, she was able to walk at that point and like things had kind of started to change, but she still had to work through that at a heart level and stuff. I thought that was a really cool scene. Riley and his dad moment's always good too. I mean, any son and father when they finally are just like, hey, let's stop being like stupid boys and like just like love each other like a son and father can. It's like, hey, good job. Any scene like that, I'm always a fan of. And then just the cherry on top, the the Mona Lisa, the leaning tower of Pisa, you know, is Annie just, hey Bev, I need to talk to you, and everyone's going, yes, like it's that clap emoji, just every word Annie's saying, there's a clap emoji in between them. And you're just like, yes, get it, girl. uh was perfect, and she didn't do it in a way that's like, you're the worst and I want to murder you. It was like she didn't use her like, I'm going to wield this justice and just bury you with it. She was just like, you know what? My son did a really bad thing, and guess what? God loves him just as much as he loves you. And that's about the most like slap that I could think of that Bev could hear.
Yeah.
And it was just perfect because it's just the truth of that is like, if you really want to believe in the same God that does this, that's fine. But guess what? Then you have to come face to face with that he died for all of us, including my son and for you. And you're just like, oh no, that means it's like an equal amount of sacrifice for both of you because you sin the same amount because you're the woat. And so is he, and we're all the woat, and it doesn't matter. And Bev's just like, that's the one thing I was putting all of my chips on.
Yeah.
Is that I was better than everyone. It's like, nope. And then, oh, good.
I agree with you. That scene, I love that. Instead, like, they stayed true to her character. They didn't turn her into this toxic viper that's just throwing blades at Bev. Nobody likes you, and you're a piece of shit. And
it wasn't like gossip.
Yeah, it wasn't any of that. It was just this is all you're ever gonna be, and we're all equals, and you're gonna hate to hear it. And she cut her down in a nice way, the way that character has been the whole time. And I just watching that, I just could see Nick just get it, girl, get it, girl. Yeah, it was just awesome.
Yeah.
There
it was
snaps in the distance.
And then for it all to poetically end where everyone actually kind of like repents of what they've done wrong or like has kind of like owned up. You see all the people, like the final scene really, where everyone just is like, I've done awful things, but now I'm going to sing and I need forgiveness. And then you have the people who are like, I've fought off the hunger. I don't need to become this. You have the um, Pruitt, and then his like the grandma that becomes a young lady again, Mildred. Yeah,
Oh,
she didn't
love
look like a
that.
Mildred at the end. But anyway, she she they all get together and like, we need to come clean, and everyone basically like repents, right? Like of what they've done, and then you have Ali and his dad like praying at the end, and then literally Bev, like who's been poster child trying to be like, this is what y'all need to do, is the only one not accepting her fate and
Mhm.
starts to dig a
Yep.
hole, and you're just like, well, I mean, looks like your faith was in your works and it wasn't in your actual God, which is why you burned the whole place to the ground and you were blinded by your own stuff. It's just like, damn, it's about as poetic as it gets right there. So
Yep.
that finale scene was insane.
Yeah,
It's
Karma
great.
had Bev.
Oh yeah.
Karma.
Oh yeah. um yeah, those were great. Ty, did we hit all of the ones that you thought we would hit, or were there ones that you kept that we didn't actually end up talking about?
The only one we didn't talk on that I wrote down just because I think it's probably a top scene in the whole show was like Riley's death scene. Like
Yeah.
taking Aaron out on the boat, saying
Sure.
like this is the first time I've been able to see what happens in my dream after I wake up every night and never know what happens. Now I finally know this is how it ends. I just want you to save yourself. Like that scene was so powerful. I loved, and I guess we can talk about it. Like every person that turned in that red wedding scene, we're calling it the red wedding scene. We can call it the
Yeah.
black mass scene, whatever.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
everybody
The
that
midnight
turns,
mass scene.
yeah, everybody that turns in that scene is immediately like, "Oh my God, the hunger's insatiable. Let's totally
Yeah.
go get this person." And Riley being out on the boat and not having any urges
Mhm.
whatsoever, and just being like,
Hmm.
"I love you so much. I just want you to just survive."
Yeah.
That was an awesome scene.
Yeah. And with his parents also both fighting it off as well, where they're
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
"Man, I'm really hungry, but you know what? Let's just let's just sing and go into the sunlight like the way it should be." Like that was pretty cool just to see that whole family who's been kind of plagued with this one bad thing that happened to be like kind of the leaders at the end of like, one, I'm going to warn you, so I'm going to lead the rebels that can actually save the people, and my family are the like few people who are actually fighting off the hunger as well. It's pretty cool.
I don't know. Do you want to talk about traumatizing? Literally having someone say like, "Hey, I've loved you and I've loved you for a long time. Anyways, now I'm gonna burn up in the sun." So
Oof,
If he
that'll
would have
do it to
said
you.
flame on, that would have been so sick.
That's probably a blooper
Aaron,
scene.
I'll always love
flame
you.
on.
Flame on!
Oh my god.
And then how badass was it that so he wrote all those letters, and then the letter to Pruitt just says like, "From
Oh
ash you became, and to ash you will return." It's like
yeah,
such a big fuck you with just one
yeah.
sentence. It was
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
so
the
good.
Flynns, the Flynns are
I was
poetic
gonna
people.
say Annie and Riley both just that poetic fuck
Change.
you where I didn't tell you fuck you. It was awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They've just been on the wrong side of judgment that was never meant for them. And so for them to just be like, I'm gonna actually use something that you believe in to just make sure, hey, like we're all on the same playing field here, you know, it was really sweet to see. Agreed. Um,
It's a
okay,
great
so the
thing though, is that like we all have these different scenes that we love. Like
oh yeah.
I think it just speaks to the caliber of the show. I just like it a lot. Like to like have like so many scenes are like, oh, this is a great scene, this is a great scene, this is a great scene, and to be like,
Hmm. Oh, I mean, even Aaron's like just sacrifice of like, hey, keep sucking on my neck. I need to cut your wings some more.
oh
I mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
that shit was crazy.
The
When
fact that we've rattled off like 13 scenes that were memorable in a 7-episode show,
Yeah.
that's
yeah,
wild.
Yeah.
agreed.
And it shows
Um,
like how anybody can watch this and you're gonna see something different, or one different scene's gonna speak to you that like I didn't even think about, or it's like, yeah, everybody's gonna see kind of what they need to see.
yeah.
yeah, agreed. Agreed. Um, were there scary moments? So I know there wasn't as many jump scenes, but like the horror genre, what would you guys say was maybe like the scariest for you? I'll actually start this one because I know I've been going last a lot, so I will.
Get it, Nick.
I'll just own it for you guys.
Pop off, pop off.
Because I don't think that. Yeah, the scariest scenes for me were probably like one when Aaron was doing like checkups. I told Michael this. I was like, "Oh, baby stuff and horror movies? Nope, I'm good. I just fast forward, fast
yep.
forward, fast forward."
Yep.
Oh.
I just like boop 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 boop. So I know what happens, but I didn't watch any of her stuff when she was at the doctor's office. I just kind of like figured it out. And then probably it's one of my biggest gripes is the angel itself, and I'm gonna get into that after this. But when the angel just walks in with his like top hat and like raincoat, just like
It's-
sup,
It's one of
You're
my
just like,
biggest gripes too.
"Ah." um, but then like Riley's like, I think I'm gonna just hop in here really quick, and the angel's just like, you're not Pruitt, so time to eat your
Num,
face.
num, num.
It was just like, oh, okay, that was pretty spooky. And probably just Joe dying, and it finally becomes this is a vampire show.
Yeah.
Like we knew that Angel was kind of like doing some stuff, cat stuff, but like Joe getting his head sucked on was not
That
something
was
I
nuts.
was
Pruitt just
prepared for.
with numbing on his head, just
Yeah, I was like, whoo, spooky time. Anybody else got any scary moments besides the eyeballs?
eyeballs. I mean, the cave and the red wedding. That's it.
Cave and the midnight mass.
I-
Midnight.
Yeah, but
What was that?
What?
we all have a different name for that scene because I call it the Jonestown scene.
Oh,
Oh, there you go.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Ugh.
That
Well,
is
I think
very
that's
cult
pretty
like,
much
yeah.
it for spookiness. Like it's much more of like a character piece drama than like scary. I mean, there's like the jump scene with like when the sheriff is saying goodnight, and then there's like it's in the window, but that's about it. Oh, and then like he kills the Bill guy or something in the house.
Yeah,
The door
Bull.
opens,
Ooh.
yeah,
Bull.
leaves him in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Movie kind of. Oh yeah. That.
Yeah,
Which
I
what?
thought-
Who's gonna walk off the streets into a house that's not theirs and think I think there's something in there? Well, that's
Yeah,
not
but
your.
also like this is a town of 127 people. I don't
I
think a
know.
lot of
Yeah.
crime happens.
Fair, but there's also one house that looks like absolute dog shit. Maybe just don't go into that one.
Well, and you keep saying, "Hey, who is that?" And he's repeating with your voice, "Hey, who is that?" And you're like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna walk in. I don't know. That's weird."
Yeah.
There's 127 people. I know all of them by name and their voice. That sounds like me. Let's see who it could be.
Yeah.
Nope. Not a chance.
Oh, my neck is getting.
Yeah.
I thought there
Like,
were.
why is this even a close call? That's not your property. Why do
Yeah.
you care about your business?
That's
Oh, God,
amazing.
yeah, scary.
So like, I think like vampire or zombie gore could be so much worse than they did it in this show as far as being scary for scary's sake. So I didn't think the show was that scary in that sense. Like,
Right.
none of the scenes where anyone died, I was really like, I can't watch this. The two
Yeah.
scenes that got me, it's the two times that they jump scared me with the girl that Riley killed with the glass in her face and the police lights.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't like that.
Spooky.
That was hard to watch. That spooked me a bit. And then I talked about it a little bit earlier. You cannot kill a dog on television.
Mm.
And you
Amen.
definitely can't do it that way where Joe's crying over the top of the dog.
Oh.
That was worse than everything else that happens in this show combined. I would let 300 islands get eaten by a vampire before somebody poisons my fucking dog. Okay, Bev?
Okay,
Jeez.
Beth.
Yeah, you can have all of Crockpot, that's fine, but give me Pike back, god damn it.
Uh,
I
Oh,
hated that scene. I fast forward through that because the dog's
Yep.
foaming at the mouth, and it's clearly not a real dog, right? It's like a
Right,
puppet
right,
or
right.
some shit. But
yeah,
that
yeah.
it was just it. So for me too, it was just like Star is Born. Like first 100 minutes of that movie, 10 out of 10. Rest of it, it could get deleted. That's fine. I didn't need any of that. That did nothing for me.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. It just helped you hate Bev that much more, but I think there's already enough.
We already hated her.
Yeah, we already hated her enough. So
Whoa.
Like there was no mystery about it either. It's like, hey, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
where poison's at, right? And she goes, you betcha. It's like,
Ev-
well, the dog got
everybody
poisoned.
knew that
Yeah,
poison
he did,
shit,
didn't he?
That's a shame.
Such. Oh.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
would you say you have access to this closet all the time? Oh, I do.
Certainly
Just,
do,
just
Sheriff.
say you killed the dog. just say it. You killed the dog. I love it.
Mm.
I hope for her career she's able to do other things that make her seem nice, but God bless her. I mean, like that's the hard part is like she did such a good job acting.
Yeah.
That's why we hate her
Mhm.
character so much. But
Mhm.
sometimes it's hard to replace that because now it's like I see your face.
Mhm.
I
And
think
all I
when somebody
see.
does bad so good, just continue to be bad and just ride that shit out.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Fair.
fair enough.
Mm.
It's not a bad take. With that said, let's jump into do you guys have any like questions, issues with the plot, things that we don't need to like nitpick like because we have to or anything like but I was just curious, were there any questions that you guys had like, oh, what was that about or why this or any just overall issues? My main one was I thought the vampire itself, while it looked aesthetically good and that scene in the church was insane, where but it didn't make sense why it was like sometimes humanoid and like could wear a robe and like be chill and be like a church leader and not say words. And then other times it was just like, oh, person, gotta eat him. Like it was very
Yeah.
inconsistent of like, are you an animal or are
Yeah.
you like, and like sometimes it, like when it healed Pruitt, it purposely cut itself and drained its blood like I need you to be another one of me, so it must know how to replicate itself. But it also just like ate people and didn't replicate them early on in the show. And so it just felt like there could have been one episode that maybe was like, hey, in Jerusalem, how'd you get it into the big old case and over here? And like, how did you agree with it? What was going on there? Like, I just felt like that overall was just maybe a little rushed and brushed over a little bit.
I don't think it needed another episode because I kind of enjoyed those. It was like, hey, he got it here. Whatever. Who cares?
Sure. Yeah.
I was concerned about like the power of it and like the whole like blood, and it was like, well, like sometimes, yeah, it saves Pruitt, but sometimes you want to like eat the body so that you can feed, um, or like who's living and who's not kind of thing. And
Hmm.
I think it was a little bit too kind of like nerfed basically when it was like sitting there eating people and then like it just didn't care about anything else. Like it felt like
Its hunger
weird.
was so insatiable that
Yeah.
her cutting the wings, it couldn't distract him from feeding.
And
Hmm.
yeah, I get that, but it's just like, eh?
Sure. Yeah. Or why I mean, I think the one thing they tried to do, it just maybe didn't sell me quite on it, was that if it truly was the will of God, it just worked in mysterious ways. So it was just like, I choose you to be a vampire, and
Mm.
I just want to eat that guy, and I choose you to be a vampire, and I want to eat that guy. And they're probably just like, oh, God works in weird ways. Or maybe like, I don't know, but it felt like like Pruitt could communicate with it
Mm-hmm.
and it would like show up to the AA meetings and just be like, "What's up? I'm just 8 feet tall and have wings. Nothing to see here."
Hi,
And
my
then
name's
I'm just gonna
Darren.
give you some more blood. Like there's clearly communication. They just never showed it
I
actually communicating.
I had to go through it, and you kind of just have to make some assumptions, right? But
Sure.
I just agreed throughout the show then. Like initially when he carries it back in the chest and he knocks and it knocks back.
True.
And
Yeah.
then the way that the rest of the show played out, I was just under the understanding that that vampire knew that it was using Monsignor Pruitt as the vehicle to expand his army.
Sure.
And so he would provide the sacrament directly to Pruitt, who would then Ponzi scheme it down to all of Potluck or whatever the island was called.
Sure.
You just kind of have to go off the assumption that because he bit Pruitt first, Pruitt is
Mhm.
his conduit to then expand the army out, and he'll keep Pruitt going as
Yeah.
long as Pruitt keeps everybody else going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, and
But yeah, I hate
I'm all
that you
good with
had to
that.
connect the dots yourself instead of like this is how it works.
Yeah.
There could have been, yeah, like a 5-minute scene where after he like woke up and was like, oh, what are we doing, dude? Like, I'm like,
I'm a vampire now.
I'm
Okay.
35 years old now. What's that about? You want to like come up with a plan? And it would have just totally explained everything for me. But I thought that was my only nitpick, where I was just like, this thing feels like it's a rabid dog, and then it feels like it's not, and then it's a rabid dog again. Just
Yeah.
like, and it wasn't clear. But that was my only nitpick.
Yeah, and it is a nitpick. Like it's pretty small, and I'm along the similar lines. Like it felt like, oh, this thing's so powerful, but also it's not.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
and like I thought there was gonna be a scene where like Pruitt would maybe turn into that. Like maybe there's like a level to become that vampire or something. Like how did the vampire become it? But I feel like it's all just like, hey, you know what? It's happening, so just go for it.
Sure.
That's what I was gonna say too. Is like, do the humans like that? Drink the stuff, die, come back to life. Do they over time maybe turn into like those characters?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, they could have done too, like you said, they could have done a whole episode on like that, whatever the fuck it was, the angel,
Mhm.
whatever. Like its creation story. Like, did it start as a human, or was it like
Yeah.
is this where it is, or like where the hell did it come from? But I was confused at the end too. I was like, I don't understand. They got bitten and died. They got bitten and now they're drinking someone else's blood. Like, yeah, it was kind of like pick and choose. Like, what you have the blood now. What are you gonna do with it, kind of thing.
I think there was just a
Mhm.
momentum to the show that just like if they took us like even like I guess 5 minutes would have been fine, but they did a whole episode. It kind of maybe would ruin the flow of like, here's this town, here's the
That
move
wasn't
into the mass, move to the mass. Yeah.
Angel's origin story. Was not the point. It was, the town was the point. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they,
And I mean, yeah, they could have taken it to the nth degree too. I mean, they could have said this was actually a fallen angel, or this was even like
Yeah.
Lucifer or
Mhm.
something, if they
that
really wanted to do
yeah.
that. But
I would have liked if the scene where he wakes up and he has his young face and he's like, dude, what the hell? Like if he would have even just one conversation back and forth would have been in like ancient Hebrew so he could like because then like how like Harry Potter can talk to the snakes and you're like nobody else knows what the fuck you're saying but you
Sure.
understand each other now. If he would have just
Yeah.
been like and he's like, all right, go spread my blood, children. And he's like, all right, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take you in a chest,
Yeah.
I guess.
That could
There
have
was
been
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
You didn't even need 5 minutes. Just give me 20 seconds of I understand you now in this bullshit language that I never spoke before, and now we
Yeah.
have an understanding.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm with
Uh,
you.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, um I think the only thing, well, I don't even know if I was going to add anything to that. No, yeah, I think we're on the same page.
My one nitpick before we get into anything that resembles a smart nitpick. This is just a dumb one. I have two very dumb ones. The vampire showing up in the robe and the top hat looked like two toddlers on each other's shoulders sneaking into
Yes. Yes.
and I just couldn't fucking get over it. Like when Riley walked in, he should have just been like, bullshit, and then just left. Just walk back out into the sunlight.
Yes,
That's so stupid.
one adult ticket, please.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
R-rated movie.
So I feel like you could have done anything else.
Yeah.
Anything else to sneak him into that church. But him looking that way was ridiculous. And
Mhm.
then it's my one nitpick of the show that I just hate. I knew something was going on with Mildred and Pruitt
Because she
from
was
the
so.
beginning.
Oh, okay.
Why can you not cast an old person to play the old version of Pruitt and Mildred as opposed to putting on that nutsack makeup to look like Johnny Knoxville and Jackass? I don't get it at all. Like I knew from the moment that we met Mildred that I could just peel off her face and she's a young lady and that's eventually going to happen. And
Sure.
you could have paid somebody nickels to just be an old woman in a bed and I would have never seen it coming.
Yeah.
So I hated that. You could have found a good looking old guy with a beard and an old lady with dementia and not done the mask. I don't understand that choice.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that Pruitt was an old guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a totally different dude.
I feel like it was that guy with a mask on. His
Really?
face looks so unnatural.
Oh, I thought he was an old ass dude.
Yeah.
I'll look and see if there's actually a cast for old.
Old ass
Now
dude.
Old ass dude.
thought it looked like they borrowed the mask from like Bad Grandpa.
Yeah, yeah. For Mildred, it definitely was like, oh, you're like 40
You
years
knew
old.
under there for sure. Like, I get that.
Like I know you're hiding something, Mildred. I get it. And so that was my nitpick, that it slightly broke like me being surprised by the show because I just kind of thought it looked fishy. That was the only thing that I didn't
It wasn't
like.
efficient.
Yeah, so technically there isn't even a cast member named Monsignor Pruitt because technically Hamish Linklater, the actor, plays Father Paul because they don't want to give any spoilers away. But there is no like old version of him
Really?
on IMDb at all.
That may be right.
Hey, your
So
boy
there's
licked it early on. Knew it.
Yeah.
Well,
Woke,
and I
No,
woke
I
Tyler.
could tell from the photo for sure. I was like, something's weird, you
Yeah.
know, for sure.
So that's my dumb, but it did. It just. I was upset because you could have casted an old person so easily.
Yeah.
It worked fine for like Ed and Annie as they like got
Yeah.
slightly younger because they are like they're like naturally born in the 70s, so they are like 50, but they're not like old. So when they put the makeup on and then like slightly got younger, it didn't seem that weird. And that's the other thing they did too with like Mildred. She like went from like 80 to 20,
Mhm.
and maybe it's because she was getting her own private services or whatever. But
Yeah,
like
she was.
Ed got like a Ed got nice. All right. Good night, everybody.
That was a
We
podcast.
peaked.
Thank you for listening.
Maybe Ed and Annie just went to less services, but like he got like a black mustache, you know.
Yeah,
And where Mildred was like, I can run and I look younger than my daughter, you know. So I just
well, he probably favored her a little bit too. But
that's
I
fair
think
too, yeah.
Oh, she got multiple midnight masses.
fuck you, Ty. I think that they do stuff like that. The continuity of just like being the same character is more important than the makeup and bullshit. Because like I had the same issue when I watched Crown. When it is anybody fucking listening?
I'm listening, yes.
Fuck
Sorry.
all. When I watched The Crown, Olivia Colman, she's
Yes.
playing
Yes.
and Claire Foy at first plays the queen. She has
Mhm.
beautiful blue eyes. It's like her iconic thing. And when Olivia Colman plays the queen, she has her regular brown eyes. And I had the biggest issue with this. I was like, what the
yeah.
blue eyes? And people just said, when we put the contacts on her, all you could fucking see was the blue eyes. So we wanted her to herself and play the fucking role. And she plays the hell out of it, of course, because it's Olivia Colman. God bless her. But sometimes you just need to overlook that
Yeah.
you know, has a different bone structure in real life or whatever. Or like she had a lame ass wig. Yes, she did. I didn't. She was an old person. I knew she was a hot 20-something-year-old probably, but I think it's more like, you know, you're still playing the same person or character or whatever. So
Yeah, they seem to value just keeping it consistent rather than have 3 people play the same person. I see what you're saying. Yeah. All I could think about after you said that, Tyler, was like during the day you call me father, but at night you can call me daddy.
Nick, we bring out the worst in each other.
Amen.
Let me know at the time. I'm gonna cut that one out. Just kidding.
Daddy Pruitt, my guy. Love it. Oh, I loved watching the Twitter stream too of people just going like, Pruitt with his tucked in shirt and jeans, you know, like low key hot priest or hot father. So it's just like, good lord, everyone's just like looking for hotties in the show.
Now, but yeah, Nick was like, I know you're crushing on Pruitt in those jeans or something like that. And I was like, but then at the end, when he finally admitted wrong, I'm like, okay, Pruitt's kind of sexy. Like,
Yeah, you did.
Nice.
You did.
Nice.
You did.
and his voice is so
Yeah.
makes the show.
He was very charismatic. He did a very good job of
super.
like,
Yeah,
especially some of those scenes where it was like, hey Lisa, walk. And you're just like, whoa, you cannot be like not confident and say that line.
Yeah,
you know,
this
you
better
can't be like yeah, exactly. No, he did a good job.
I did have one nitpick before we get to Tyler's big one.
Oh, I don't have another big one. I just have one that's not as dumb to say out loud.
Oh, then go for it.
Yeah. I maybe it makes sense. I don't know if you guys even like dwelled on this for a second. I didn't understand if you have to die to phase into a vampire, right? Like you can have vampire blood in your body, and aside from being a little bit younger, whatever, you really don't have any side effects. Why did Erin's body have to eat her baby? Like it bugged me a little bit as the show went on, where it's like all of the drastic changes to people are happening post death, but Erin's just her body cannibalized a 20-week-old baby.
Yeah.
And then we never really talked about it again, other than just like, oh, whoa, that's weird.
It was
Yeah.
super brief in
Yeah.
that they were like, hey, it's a parasite.
I
And
think-
it
Yeah, I
was
mean,
like,
it functions as like it's a foreign body, so her body
Yeah.
just healed itself because
was
Yeah.
in its mind, yeah.
yeah. So it was just like, hey, this is not part of my natural body or like normal body.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah,
very, yeah.
I just
You
thought
could
it was like she's the only person that had a negative side effect from receiving the sacrament before dying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think too, like, yeah, for me that was some of the stuff I was like, oh, don't need to worry about this right now. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm fast forwarding through it, but I do think like I just I don't know. I think it's just like beautiful that she has every reason to not even try anymore, and she ends up being, if there is like a hero, like I mean, her final act was pretty much like as good as it could have gotten, you know. And so it was just like she like was actually kind of like mothering this vampire for while she like led it to its demise. It's like, you took this from me, so I'm going to literally like nurse you for a second, and then I'm gonna kill you. You know, like
the scene where she grabbed the head of the vampire and put it back to her neck, you're like, Erin, you are a bad woman.
yes,
You've got your shit figured out.
yeah. And then she has that cool scene where, I mean, like, probably, I mean, I know some people are arguing that that's like the best scene of the show, is her monologue where she's just staring into the camera, you know, as she bleeds out, you know, and calls it good. But yeah, that was insane.
So we're assuming the vampire died. Is that what we're saying?
They tried to be like, it's 30 miles and it's like losing ground every 2 flaps. So I think it was like,
So I think the way that they did it, because I'm 100% under the assumption it died. Everyone's powers that they got from receiving the sacrament left when the host dies.
Yeah.
So when Lisa lost her ability to walk, it's because the vampire died.
Yeah, I agree.
oh, okay. I thought
I
it was just
feel
when
like
the sun hit her.
no, I think no, because she would have burned up. Or,
Walking
no,
in-
she wouldn't have because she hasn't died. But yeah, I took it as the assumption of the person or the host of the sacrament died, and so
That
the
could be too.
blessing is gone now.
That
Yeah,
has to
I
be
agree. That was definitely it for me.
it because she was walking around in daylight. Like the people that were getting micro doses of the blood, like were walking around and not burning in the sun. So yeah, if that happens,
Oh, that's true. Okay. I thought she was just getting enough of the sacrament because she kept going every day, that, but if the sun can hit her and it takes it all away, then perhaps it's fine. You're
So
right.
yeah,
So,
I was under
yeah,
the
good
assumption
call.
if it died, it went away.
That's fair.
Like,
That's
the
fair.
only other way it could be is like distance from the island or something, but the island itself doesn't hold the power. It's like the
Right.
demon.
Yeah, I guess I never thought of that because, yeah, she did walk out in the daylight and they didn't make it like go away. So you're right.
no, yeah, the people
Okay.
that were micro doses of the blood weren't burning alive. It was just when they were bitten that they were like burning.
Did
Right.
it bug anyone else throughout the show as they're starting to like, especially when Dr. Sarah is like playing with the blood and it's burning up and like all this is going, did it bother anybody else that no one else is like, yo, this totally seems like we're turning into vampires? Like the writer of the show made it sound like the 137 people on the island had no knowledge of vampire fantasy whatsoever. Like if all
Yeah,
of a sudden my blood started burning up in the sun, the first thing I'm going to say is like, holy shit, I'm Team Edward.
Okay, but the only team the only the doctor knew about the burning blood. everyone
Nope.
else was like, "Oh, I feel really good." Like it was just like, yeah.
Well,
No,
but,
but
but when
you're
she was
saying
talking
like,
about it to the other doctor or to the people, she's like, "Yeah, this is Anthromyx patulitz, and in the past, there's history of this in an
Well,
old
that was
medical
like
book." It's
episode
like,
6, right? That was
yeah,
like right
but
before
why
it was
did the
like,
doctor just go like, "Yo, like, I think my mom's a vampire, dude"?
yeah,
To
or
herself,
why?
if I go to anybody else, they're gonna just say I'm crazy and lock me up. So she's like, I'm trying to figure this out by myself.
They
Like, with
picked the right character that needed to stay quiet the whole episode. I think,
Mhm.
like you were saying, yeah, but why didn't like Father Pruitt? Was he just so blinded by his mission that he's like, why do I want to suck blood? Like this kind of
oh
feels like a
yeah.
vampire, you know? Like, or why is Riley like, all right, well, I'm gonna burn in the sunlight. I'm a vampire now, you know? Like no
They
one
just
like
it's
named
it's
it.
like there was no pre-existing knowledge that
Yeah.
vampire is a thing.
Well, they even
Yep.
call it the Angel the entire time. Like not a
They never.
single.
I don't think vampire was ever said. Like Riley
Yeah,
never
which
said
is
I'm a
crazy.
vampire.
Yeah.
Like he told the story to Aaron and was like, "Hey, this is me." And I think Aaron knew the word, "Oh, vampire, vampire." And then she went to the sheriff and was like, "Hey, there's some weird vampire-y stuff, but like no one explicitly says it."
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
then,
fair.
but I did like that the doctor like explained it in a scientific way,
Mhm.
kind of thing. It was like, oh, this is how like vampire could be like real in a way of like,
Sure.
hey, you just have this extreme like iron, like basically a desire to have iron and iron rich blood, kind of thing. So it was kind of cool
Mm-hmm.
that they did that.
Yeah. One thing I think would have been interesting could have been to have the angel be like a physical presence for the entire time, but that like Pruitt's dementia didn't never fully got healed when he like became younger, and he was just lying the whole time. He got bit, but he just like is spreading it to people, and like it starts flashing back to just like him spreading it instead of the vampire. I think that could have been interesting.
But, like he didn't know.
Yeah, so like let's say the angel just never got brought over. He just gets bit and like changed in Jerusalem or whatever, or in Jordan or wherever he goes.
Comes back.
And they just kind of like leaned in because that's what made the whole thing believable is like he had dementia, sees this like angel because his mind is so crazy that he just turns young and he's like, well, I think I saw an angel, so therefore, boom, spreads it. But I think it would have been cool as like a flashback, like last episode, like what if he had dementia this whole time and that's why he was like flawed and he kept like leading people but like he was actually killing all of them at the same time or something. I don't know. I think that would have been kind of neat to lean into a little bit, but that's just a
That'd be
what if
interesting.
scenario.
I think there's less of a redemption arc for Pruitt at that point. If he's like didn't know what he
That's
was
fair.
doing,
That's fair. Yeah.
and now it's like he has redemption in 30 minutes.
Mm, yeah. And he connected with his family, and that was kind of cool. Like how all of that, like they don't even show you a flashback of how him and his wife were for like, or not his wife, but like they basically had an affair, and then they had to keep it on the DL for the whole. Yeah, that's fair.
That was super cool. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Hmm.
Um, One other minor nitpick is I always kept thinking about the population of this town, and it always seemed like it was more than it actually was.
Hmm.
Like, it seems like a pretty busy town for only 127 people. I don't know.
What scenes did you feel like showed more than that? Because I felt like they never really showed a congregation larger than the church, and we were to believe that pretty much everyone went to Easter
Mhm.
Mass and it
Yeah, so
filled out the
anyways,
church.
I paused. Yeah, I paused at the Easter service and I counted all the people.
Okay,
Um,
142. This show's bullshit.
I believe it was 127 at the beginning, but there were about 90, or it was like 85 people accounted for in the church service, and so
Oh wow.
40 people were outside the church, and it just felt
Hmm.
like it was.
That
And
makes
again,
sense.
this is a super nitpick of like it felt like for the characters to run and hide on the island on this very tiny island that there's not many people, not many houses, not many whatevers. Like, how do they really escape when it's just like, I mean, you walk down the street and you see everybody.
Hmm.
So it
Well,
was,
True.
yeah.
only two of them do. So
Right, but like still, it's like they could get out of the church, they could get like down the street to their house, and then like some like the vampires were distracted by 40 people or so. Like for 80 vampires to attack 40 people, I don't know.
Mhm.
It's all nitpick. So I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I felt like so the thing I was gonna say to you was about that was this felt like it was definitely changed to this fairy island because of COVID.
Oh, interesting. Cause so to keep like the cast down.
I think it was small. I don't know if it was necessarily written to be this small of a town. I think
That's
this was
fair.
they're not going to
Interesting.
show it, but I mean I think it fits so well in the plot that no one's going to bat an eye. I think they did something small enough so that there never had to be more than
X people.
unsafe amount of people except for like a few scenes.
That's interesting. I think the island was in the original idea because they had to burn the boats and like keep it
Mhm.
contained. But population wise, that could make sense.
So I think the area that they're working with maybe is bigger than what maybe like in your mind it's like 127 people. Maybe it's supposed to be an island of like 500,
Mm,
but COVID's like nope, 127, and then there's only like 40 people not at this church. But it
yeah.
also makes the the message that the church is spreading so much more powerful if literally 75% of your people are at the church service too. So I don't know. I mean, maybe
And
it was all original.
they say too that everybody's left the island. So I think
Mhm.
that island's built to hold a lot more than that many, but that's just
True.
how many left. And I like
Oh, that's true. It's a dead town. It's more of a dead town.
go
Yeah,
progressively.
you're.
Then it's like in the beginning there's 5 people in church, and then at the end there's like 80.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's a pretty big, difference. But also it's not assuming the entire town's there.
Yeah.
Right.
I've just read recent interviews about some of these Netflix shows that have come out, and it's like in the midst of like the pandemic last year with like no vaccine, like what they had to do to some of the stories. I didn't
Makes a lot
read
of
on
sense.
Midnight Mass specifically, but I was just curious if that would have had a play in it. But
Oh yeah, it could make a lot of sense. Like a sense.
it's like there's no intimate scenes that exist unless like those two people are tested like 8 times a day.
That's true. Like even when they were sitting on a couch,
Yeah,
like
Riley's like,
far.
I'm gonna socially distance on this couch really quick. Is that okay?
I next so that's kind of a move, but whatever.
Yeah.
Wait,
No,
what
that's
was that?
fine.
Said they're all sucking on each other's necks at the end. So
Oh,
That's fair. That is extremely intimate
they like
and
stop
not
before
socially
like, are you
distanced.
vaccinated?
Yeah.
Before I get your blood, are you vaccinated?
Amen. That's awesome.
We touched on it earlier about your like the nobody's actually good thing, but before we eventually get to signing off, I loved that people that you thought were good the whole show when they turned like showed their true colors. Like I loved that Wade, the mayor, and
Yeah.
his wife and all of them like
Just go on a killing spree.
well, but like, and I love that they folded Wade into being like that inner circle of, hey, you're a piece of shit and you're gonna ruin the island at like season 4. Like, they show Wade as being this really good guy. He's so wholesome, and my daughter's crippled, but I hold no resentment. And then all of a sudden, it's like, Wade, you're kind of starting to become a piece of shit. And then
Yeah.
Wade, you turned, and now you're totally a piece of shit, and you're eating people in church. And
Yeah.
then I thought that was awesome. I thought the like end of the show showing people showing their true colors and only a couple people being morally right kind of thing was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that they took some of those characters we held so highly and brought them down because of them turning into vampires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's basically Bev, but on a smaller scale of like, hey, you hold yourself so highly, but you're all like, you're not your own savior. It's like you're not the best person. You're not better than anyone else
Well,
because you're the
yeah.
kind
And
of
then
thing.
straight up like Annie kills herself to prove her point,
Yeah.
like I'm just gonna like I'm gonna like set a pick by literally just squirting all of my blood out so that you guys won't chase after my
Like
my
that?
kids. But then it also gives you a moment where Bev's like, I am above everyone. And then she has a handful of blood and she's like, I can't even fight this off. So yeah, it's pretty sick.
Okay, one more dumb thought.
Right.
Was
Sure.
there ever a point that confused you, or I'm thinking out loud now, nitpick in the story. When Monsignor Pruitt is like fighting his hunger, maybe it's like episode 4, and he has the cross in his hand and he cuts his hand and he's kind of like cutting his own hand to suck it to sustain himself. Like it kind of led me to believe at that point in time that like maybe Pruitt could fight his hunger by just like cutting his own hand, sucking his own blood, and then you have these superhuman healing abilities. So like could he just self-sustain that way? Because at that point in time, after that episode, I thought to myself, maybe Pruitt's such a good guy. Like, he's going to figure out he turned into a vampire and this totally wasn't the way. And maybe I can just fight off the hunger by just doing it myself. And then the Joe Collie scene happened. I just thought it was kind of like Bang Bang. Like, Pruitt's like, damn, I can eat my own hand. Or Joe Collie's head. Joe Collie's head's way better. Now let's kill everybody at church. Like it kind of just happened bang bang for me.
Yeah, I think it's like, again, like the temptation of like, oh, you're right here, I can have you now, like kind of thing. It's like, I think it's, I did also think about like, there's got to be a sustainable way to do this. Of like, hey, and like they kind of did that with the not the mayor, but the other guy that uh drinks the poison
Sturge.
first. Scourge, yeah.
Sturge
He
keeps
like
cutting his arm, yeah.
Yeah, so like in giving the blood, so like there's got to be like some kind of sustainable way, but I think it again, it just leans into like the temptation of it and like basically like the urge to like, I guess, to like sin and to be like, hey, I want to do this and I'm gonna do it, and like that's just like the human nature of it. It's like we're gonna do all the bad things that we can do because we're human.
Yeah. And it ultimately led him down a path where at the end he goes, this wasn't actually what it was meant to do, you know? Like I tried talking my way into it. He kind of tries to bev it for like most of the season and then realizes, ah, shoot, they're just like following me because of me.
Mm-hmm.
And my ultimate goal was that this would help people worship, and now I'm blind, you know? So I thought it was, yeah, it was good. It's like there's no way you guys are gonna get away with this. There's no way you guys are gonna be like, let's just suck enough blood, it'll make sense. He tried to be like, let's keep everyone contained so I can at least talk to them as vampires.
Yeah.
And then Bev was like, unleash
Open the
hounds,
doors, baby.
you know?
Doors, baby.
I thought that was such a powerful quote when Bev was like, if you've received the sacrament or been to the church, you'll be saved. Like she was alluding to basically if you've ever drank the blood before, when you die,
Yeah.
you're gonna come back. And the only people that are gonna die when we send all these people out to feed are the people that haven't been coming to church, so fuck them anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
That was like a crazy moment where Bev's just kind of like, we gave you plenty of opportunities to save you.
Yep.
Now it's go time.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of going to be the subplot of the angel. Like the ones that he kills obviously don't come back. So I thought it was going to be like him kind of cleansing the land of like the quote unquote dirty, like not chosen people. But I don't think they ended up really diving in. I think the angel was like, I hungry, time to eat. So like let's get it.
Hungry num
So
num.
hungry num num. No, I agree. But I will say, what a highly like reviewed show by all four of us for even the like, and we literally had to like nitpick. Like it wasn't like, and then this scene was just absolutely insane and made no sense. It was like, no, everything was artistically shot well, acted well, plot wise made perfect like sense. We all were moved by it. But if we had to say like why it was flawed and find reasons, here's a few. So I think overall we did a pretty fair job. I typically wouldn't go this hard on like most reviews, but I think we're like, it's so high. The the vampire wore a coat.
Yeah, well, we had to try so hard to find something bad that we wrote them all down, and that's why they're getting brought up. But
Yeah.
if you were doing like a 5-minute, hey, should you watch this show? I'm gonna talk 4 minutes and 50 seconds about the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Kenzie, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
What about Cooper? Okay.
He's fell over on the floor.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Same.
No, I was gonna say like, which I think we kind of talked about this, after I finished it, but like, I don't know, like the scariest thing for me is when people do like really really bad shit and then quote the Bible at the same time. I just think that's so creepy. But like, if Jesus were to come back today, first of all, do you two specifically, as your more
All right.
Peace, boys.
first of all,
Thanks.
do you think that's possible, or do you think that could happen, and like what would it look like if it not totally destructive like this? Like what would it look like to where you're like, oh, I believe this is happening, as a faithful person, like this is like the real deal. Like what would that look like?
That's interesting.
Or would that not be believable? And then if it's not, then how do you like believe those stories and think they're true, but then think, oh, that would be ludicrous for that to happen today? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I think the difference between this show and like if Jesus were to come back is you wouldn't have to drink something or you wouldn't have to be persuaded. What would be happening in front of everybody would literally cause them all to change their mind and go, oh, okay. Like something so profound would be happening that everyone wouldn't have an argument against it. Like it
Right.
would have
You don't
to,
have
it would
to.
have,
You don't have to kill in the name of God. It's like
right. It would
Well,
just be
but
like,
thing.
whoa.
to be fair, though, through 5 episodes, if you just stopped there before the Red Wedding episode, I mean, all of those people in the congregation just did what you said. They observed a miracle. They said, there's no way that I can rationalize
Mhm.
this outside of it being an
Mhm.
act of God. They didn't
Right.
know they were drinking blood. They were
Mhm.
just receiving communion like anybody else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The thing I would be weary of is if it ever requires something of you in order for it to happen. That's what I would be weary of. The thing about Jesus was that he lived the perfect life and died the death that we deserve. So therefore, if it requires work on my end, I would be a little weary because I'd be like, why? Because the sacrifice has already been made. So I would maybe like ask some questions and be a little skeptical of like, why do you need me to like drink that specific cup? Like
Mhm.
why do you need me to do this?
Yeah, it's
And
all
whenever it
symbolic.
becomes a requirement, yeah, that's when it's like, whoa, why is it all of a sudden a
When
requirement?
when we take communion, it's not like, oh, this is the blood. This is literally the blood of Jesus, or like this is the blood that's gonna make me young, kind of thing. It's like,
Mm.
Like, isn't that what happened in the Bible? Did they not drink his blood? I mean, why is that so crazy now? But we talk about that story in the Bible like it's normal. So why is that crazy now?
Why is what crazy? Sorry, what'd you say?
Like drinking blood. Like, isn't that what he says in the like, drink my blood and you'll have
Well,
everlasting?
during the Last Supper, he serves them wine and bread and says, this is a symbol of my covenant to you. This is my body, which will be broken for you, which was to symbolize, hey, I'm going to die for you on the cross. It's not like you're actually eating his flesh.
So
And
it
then
never
here's my blood. No,
blood.
he never like cut his wrist and was
Mhm.
like, now drink it. No.
So it was always symbolic.
it was never like,
Yeah.
this is my
I
literal
mean, I
blood.
think there's some sects of religion that would say like when they like bless the communion and like sacraments, it becomes that.
Right.
But no, it's always meant to be like a reflection of, oh man, your body was broken for me. So when I eat this, I need to remember that you took the punishment for me. When I drink this blood, I need to remember that it was spilled out for me. But no, I'm not actually ingesting full on blood and flesh.
Mhm.
And I don't know. Like, I'm literally asking
No,
someone.
that's fine. No, yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I agree, because like what we said, I was like, oh, when was it? I think it was after the Jonestown episode. I was like, I just don't feel like, you know, if if it's really God, if it's really Jesus, whatever you want to call it, I don't think he would ask you to have one moment of faith and kill yourself.
Right.
Just
Mm,
just or
yeah.
whatever. Wouldn't ask that of you, would he? Because like, wouldn't he just be, if he is whatever he is, wouldn't he just do good
Hmm.
anyway, or be?
Right. That's where the issue was, is like
Yeah.
what they were doing wasn't Jesus and what they were
Right.
doing wasn't God. That's like that was the
Yeah.
issue. It's like God is not asking you to like take some
Yeah.
poison and die. You know, it's like
Yeah.
It's crazy because I mean, like the reason that like the episode so bad. Like in psych, we study like cults and stuff, and it's like there's like a literal recording on, like, you probably find it on YouTube, of the Jonestown massacre. You guys know what that was, right?
yeah.
You know, the fluid
Yeah.
thing came from whatever. I don't want to just assume. I don't know, but it's like the recording of that literal moment in history happening is like identical to that episode. It's like, just have one moment of faith, you know, give it to the kids first, like, let's just end this, let's do the right thing. And they like are, it's that exact mentality. It's brainwashing, it's a cult, it's not faith or religion, but it's like that could happen again. Like people could really believe that.
Oh, for sure.
And that's why that just scared me so much. So I'm just like, I guess at what point do you take quotes in the Bible with like a grain of salt as just guidance and not literal, not take it and run with it. And as long as I'm quoting the Bible, I can do things that are just evil as shit and still go to heaven at the end of the day. Because that I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're
Oh,
saying. No, I
it's crazy.
think, I mean, community is important. I mean, no single person has ever been able to figure out all the answers, right? And so if you just read it and go, I'm not going to talk to anybody about it, you're probably getting something wrong. But the whole point is not to be the one who has all the answers, but to, I guess, worship the one who does. And so you kind of, I mean, that's what prayer is important for. I mean, I think those types of things are, um, you don't typically like put your trust in a human being that's currently here. You put your trust in the only human being that was also all of God and all of a man. So it's like that's where the big red flag is. Was like when a young version of our pastor randomly shows up, we just go, okay, interesting. Got some questions. We don't go, well, he's young, so time to kill our neighbors. Just
Yeah,
like
with like the cult mentality came in was they were worshiping Pruitt. They weren't being like, oh, this is what
yeah.
God. It's like, and people
Mhm.
use that like the language of like this is what God wants you to do, but it's really what they want you to do, and
It
they
ultimately
twist it.
was trying to be
Exactly.
control. He wanted control over his congregation. So if they all died, they'd all be vampires, and then now they have to obey him, right? Because they all have the same hunger and now are these monsters. So um, those are some red flags. But we also mess up too. I mean, there's probably times when somebody's like, you should do this, and I'm like, huh, you're right, and I don't even think twice about it. I mean, we all have some cult like thinking from time to time, I'm sure, where we're just like, everyone else says this seems to work, so let's just do it. So there's obviously error as well because we're not perfect.
Yeah, that's why I think Nick, your favorite line is, we're not as good as anyone else. Like we're all Bevs, really, in a sense.
It's
Like,
hard to hear that, but yes.
yeah, we're all like we're not better than anyone else, and
Yeah.
God loves us all the same. So
Hmm.
Yeah, if you try too hard to make everyone like believe something, you will end up as a bev. you
Mm.
know you're trying to sit in the judgment seat, which was never yours to begin with. So I think that's where the first red flag would be. um and you should all start being more like Annie, who's like, you know what, everybody love everybody, and you're all loved the same amount. I think that's why Annie's like line killed me at the end, because I was just like, yeah, that's the whole point. Like, if I try to be a judge, it's just going to end with Bev, where I'm like, my only hope is that people will obey my commands, and they never will because I suck as a person, and no one wants to actually be like, Nick Kruzit should be my boss. Like, not a single person would obey me. They would like, look at this clown. He said that stupid joke about Daddy Pruitt, earlier. Like, no one's gonna listen to me. I've lost all my reputation. I'd be the worst cult leader in existence. So
Mm.
that's fair questions, though. I mean, like, and it's better to ask them than to just assume, like they're all just blind. But I do think like the one thing the show got right was that there isn't a single person that is 100% good.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, is that the church should never be for perfect people. It should be for broken people.
Mhm. Mhm.
But good questions.
Yeah.
Let me know if you have more.
Okay. Let me look at my book.
Okay, there you go.
It's the best part of the show, though. It's like it asks those questions, though. Like it brings that up. So it's just like it's not like, hey, this is the answer. It's like, hey, here's a question. Why don't you answer it for
Yeah, I
yourself?
mean, how bad would it have been if Pruitt was just doubled down on him being the leader? It would have been so unsatisfying.
Oh yeah.
Because the truth is, like, no one was meant to be the sole leader of that and force people to do things in order to do it. So,
Mm-hmm.
I
agreed.
really do have good intentions coming in. I think he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna bring like healing to my town," and
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
what's a thing, whatever. And then I think he just got in a little over his
Yeah.
head.
Just did it in the wrong.
Well, and I think the dementia thing was meant to be kind of a part of it as well. To be
Yeah.
like, this whole thing, when I first witnessed the angel, I was also confused as shit and shouldn't have even been in that cave. You know what I mean? Like it starts it off on a rocky note.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So he perceived it differently too, where he's like, this angel didn't even talk about it like as though like the angel like talked to me or something. And it's like, no, the angel straight up bit your jugular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sucked your blood. And then it blessed you or something by like you drank blood out of its wrist. It's like,
Yeah.
I think your dementia was talking a little.
Yeah. A little too
He-
strong.
Yeah. He basically sold his soul, is what he did.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
he
But if there
saw it
wasn't
like,
forgiveness, then yeah, he should have just doubled down. But the beauty at the end was like, I should have been with you, Mildred, and I love our daughter, and I'm so damn proud of her. And he has just all this redemption. It's like, thank God that there is forgiveness, because man, what you did to this town was literally ruin it and burn it to the ground. But at the end, you're forgiven, and so that's pretty sick.
yeah. Yeah, it is. I agree.
All right, Ty, time to tap back in.
That was a nice break. I'm really glad that you guys bared that burden, because it does bring up an interesting point. I don't want to talk about it any more than making the comment, but for a show that's going to be watched by hundreds of millions of people on Netflix that don't have a Catholic background, using Catholicism as a vehicle for the show for 5 episodes and then turning it on its head, there's going to be some questions that aren't going to be answered in this format. You're going to have a lot of people out there that are left with like like, so what part of this was real and like what part was for the show? And like, I kind of connected with Pruitt for a little while. Like, does that mean maybe I should give it a try? It's interesting that you're going to make a religion, like a mainstream religion, something that the masses are going to watch and then turn it into this fantasy show. It will be odd to see what happens.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't have to have any prerequisites to watch this show. We had a background in it, so Kenzie can ask some questions. But you are going to have some people that are just like, yo, I watched Midnight Mass. It was wild. What the hell's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the thing that cracked me up was I read an interview with Mike Flanagan, and he just goes, I grew up Catholic, and I just constantly thought about, if we're drinking a cup that symbolizes blood, we're kind of like vampires, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that was the whole basis of the show. He was just like, as a kid, I kind of thought, oh, we're kind of like vampires. Maybe I'll do like vampires in church one day. And then that was
totally
all
makes
that
sense,
went
yeah.
into it. And then he just made a show. And you're just like, no
now
one
we're
else thought that. We're all like, maybe there's some like existential, like maybe he was like, thinking. It's like, I think he just likes vampires and church kind of interests him.
Yeah.
What is
Dude's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I never thought of it though too, for as like
no.
my love for like monster lore and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about like the symbology of like drinking blood on Sundays, you know, or whatever, how that would make you closer to a vampire than most individuals, you know. So anyway, yeah. Well, I have to say, this was, if I could rate this podcast, if I could review this podcast spoiler free, 10 out of 10.
Bless him.
Tyler, way to come in. Just, I could tell you had 3 spreadsheets open and a Word document for sure.
Your boy was prepared. Okay.
God bless you.
I listened to Jake's episode. Jake had notebooks. I said, I can't tarnish the family name and show up without some
Amen.
stuff. So yeah.
Well, great.
This was a wonderful treat. I thought it was
Yeah.
a blast. This was a show that was so good that I needed to talk about it with somebody.
Sick.
And not having, you know, be it your partner in life or, you know, someone like that watches it with you. Who else are you going to talk about this with? Because it is
Right.
at the end of the day a horror show.
Mhm.
And so, you know, using an avenue like this or listening to a podcast that talks about some shit that you're thinking about, I think it's a great idea because this is a polarizing show, and then you literally just internalize all of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this was nice. Talking about the show. This felt. I did the Mamma Mia hand. I just don't have the camera. But
hey,
goddamn,
Mia.
hey,
I love
Monsignor
it.
Pruitt, he's Mama'd his last Mia.
Oh, yeah, we're back. Daddy
Jesus.
Pruitt. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Tyler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
loved
Kenzie.
it, Kenzie. Sweet.
Always a pleasure.
Tyler,
Yes,
always
Kenzie, also
Yeah.
thank you for your authenticity and good questions and not holding back. You're
And
the
Coop.
goat.
And here's Cooper.
And Coop just plump nugget on the on his
Good night.
side.
Good night, Moon.
Good to Coop.
All right. Well, I don't know how many reviews people have listened to about Midnight Mass, but you've now heard from us. Not us, united. All right, we did it. Well, hey, seriously though, thank you guys. Appreciate you.
No, my pants just got tighter, Nick. That was awesome.
Oh.
What?
See you guys. Thank you for
All
having
right.
me on.
We'll catch you
course.
later. See
Yeah,
ya.
take care.
You've just listened to Not Us United. You can find us under Not Us United on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Please leave us a review and consider subscribing to our podcast. You can reach out for future podcast topic suggestions at notusunitedpod@gmail.com.